everybody. Thank you for coming out. And Tammy, thank you for your leadership on behalf of the county party. I think everyone in this room knows that being the leader of the county party is an important job, that it's probably not a glamorous job and it's an underappreciated job, but it's important. The work that the party does at the county level in terms of identifying supporters and getting the message out and supporting and recruiting candidates is really fundamental to the success of the Republican and conservative movement in this county and in this state. So let's give Tammy a round of applause. Well, as you know, the news of the day and the news all across the country and across the world over the last 24 hours was that the United States of America received a historic downgrade in its credit rating from Standard & Poor's. And I think as we're gathered here this morning, what we should be talking about is downgrading Barack Obama from President of the United States. And what he doesn't understand is all this talk of the full faith and credit in the United States government. He needs to be reminded, and we need to have a president who understands that we need to put our full faith and credit in the American people. His vision for America is to take things out of the private sector and put it into the government. What we need to be doing is taking things out of the government and putting it back in the private sector and trusting the people of this country. As you know, our country is not great because of our bureaucracy. It's not great because of our government. It's great because of our people. And if you think about what made us the greatest nation the world has ever known, it's not because we're the biggest country in terms of population. We're not. We're only a little over 300 million people. We're not the cheapest country, although we need to be more competitive, that's for sure. We're the greatest country the world's ever known because we're the freest. And when people are free, they can have their version of the American dream as they see fit. They can worship as they see fit. They can start new things, do new things. They can invent and create and innovate. And it is fundamentally different than most other places around the world throughout most of the time. And what Barack Obama doesn't realize is that every time government creeps into our lives and makes it slower or more expensive or more difficult or more discouraging, or they do even worse, they just take over entire parts of the economy, they not only grow their budgets, but they weigh down and discourage the American spirit. That's what we see happening now across America, don't we? We've got too many of our fellow citizens who are worried about whether the future is going to be as bright as the past. We have a plurality of Americans now who think that China is going to be the greatest nation in the world inside 20 years. Not us. We have way too many of our fellow citizens unemployed and underemployed. Now, we had the other day Vladimir Putin say that the United States is a parasite on the world economy. We had the leadership of China yesterday say that the United States of America is addicted to debt. The communist Chinese lecturing us about finances and markets in the world. These are new and historic lows, and they are troubling signals about the state of our country. So those of us who see this, those of us who know it, have to stand up and get this country back. We have to lead it to a better direction. I'm running for President of the United States because I've got the experience and the leadership and the record of results and the vision and the passion to lead America to a better place. Now, I know you're tired of $4 a gallon gas, or nearly so. I know you're tired of crushing levels of unemployment. I know you're tired of a federal government that's out of control. I know you're tired of a president who came through Iowa and other places around this country 3 years ago and made these soaring speeches and then didn't do any of it, and worse yet, led the country in a dangerous direction. So you're familiar with all of that, but we got to get them out of there. And so what I want to talk to you about today is the steps it's going to take to get this country back on track. I want to leave the bulk of the time for questions, but let me give you a few things that I think are just fundamentally important to our country. Number one, we need to be a nation that turns toward God, not away from God. Number two, we have to have a country where people who want to start private businesses are the main engines for job growth in this country, not the government. So we have 6 million people in the United States, 6 million businesses in the United States of America. 5.9 million of those 6 million are companies with 500 employees or less. So almost the entire economy, as measured by the number of businesses, is small and medium-sized businesses. And they're saying, get the government off my back. Some talk about taxes, some talk about regulation, some talk about the cost of energy, some talk about the cost of health care, but the basic message across the whole country in those 5.9 million small and medium-sized businesses, the ones that we need to grow, are saying, get the government off my back. It's too heavy, it's too discouraging, it's too uncertain. And they understand that in order for the private economy to grow, we've got to shrink the government. Now, a 10-year-old came to one of our meetings like this a few weeks ago, and I had talked to him before the meeting, and he volunteered his thoughts on the economy, and I thought he did it so well, I invited him to come up and share it with the group. So literally, a 10-year-old came in front of the group with a microphone, and he said, well, Governor, if you keep the taxes low, then people will have more money. And if people have more money, then they'll buy more things. And if people buy more things, the businesses will be busier. And if the businesses are busier, they'll hire more people. And then the more people who get hired, they'll have more money. And then they'll buy more things. And then so on and so on. This 10-year-old knew more about how to grow the private economy than Barack Obama. We shouldn't have to have a 10-year-old exceed the economic knowledge of the President of the United States. So we have a lot of work to do here. Now look, most Republican candidates are going to come through town and they're going to tell you many of the same things. You know, if somebody else were standing here, they're going to say, look, I'm the one who's going to reduce spending. I'm the one who is going to cut taxes. I'm the one who's going to get those schools fixed by emphasizing parents, choice, and accountability. They'll say, I'm pro-life, and I'm traditional marriage, and I'm pro-immigration reform, and I'm pro-government employee compensation reform, and I'm pro-private sector economic investment and the like, and pro-appointing conservative justices. So you might listen to that and say, well, what's the difference between all of these candidates? Well, one question I hope you'll ask is, have they actually done any of it? Because we learned with Barack Obama, first, you better not put somebody in the White House who's not ready for the job. He hadn't run anything, hadn't led anything, hadn't actually done anything as an executive. He was a community organizer. He was a college professor. And then we put him in the Oval Office and wonder why it's not working. If you're going to make somebody President of the United States and leader of the free world and Commander-in-Chief, they better have run a large enterprise as an executive under difficult circumstances and driven it to results. So that's one lesson. Number two, have our candidates done these things? If you go look at my record in Minnesota, the answer is a resounding yes. I took spending in government from historic highs to historic lows. I cut taxes net $800 million over my time as governor, even though we had the effects of 2 recessions. We were one of the first states in the nation to take on the teacher unions and say we're going to move from seniority pay to performance pay and offer it statewide. I led the effort to reform public employee pension and compensation before it was the cool and popular thing to do. We did it years ago. I did healthcare reform the right way. No individual mandates, no government takeovers. I appointed one of the best, maybe the best group of conservative justices to the Minnesota Supreme Court of any state in the country, any governor in the country. We did immigration reform and welfare reform and much more down the list. So you want somebody, I think, as your candidate who's actually done these things, who doesn't just flap their jaw. Any bobblehead can stand up here and give you the words like Barack Obama did, dupe the Democrats in Iowa to catapult him on his way to the presidency. We don't need any more speeches. What we need is results. The country is sinking and the hour is late. We need somebody who's a tested, proven leader with results who can fix the country and get it back on track boldly and quickly. That's what I did in Minnesota. That's what I'll do for the country. And then lastly, I just want to appeal to you to come to Ames and help our campaign. It's a week from today, August 13th. We've got some great music, we've got barbecue, we've got Dairy Queen blizzards. It's going to be fun. You don't have to stay the whole day. You can come for a while if your schedule otherwise is demanding. But it's the kickoff to the formal campaign. The warm-ups are over, the preseason is over. Now this is going to be the kickoff to the formal campaign in Iowa. The ultimate goal, of course, is to win the Iowa caucuses next January or February. But the Ames straw poll is an important benchmark along the way. We're going to show some good progress. But I really would appreciate you coming and helping our campaign. So I hope you'll come, and if you need a ride or sign up at the postcards in the back, we'll take good care of you and get you there. Make sure you get home in the time that's convenient for you. But we really need your help and want your help, so I hope you'll come to Ames. We can do this. The country is a little discouraged right now for good reason. But we can do this. There has been many, many times where a country has faced challenge before, and we always overcome. The way forward may not be easy, but it is not complex. We know what made this nation great. We can see the blueprint, the roadmap that the founders gave us. We can see the chapters of success that this country has experienced, and we can take the values and lessons from that and bring it forward to our time. And so if security were easy, everybody around the world would be secure, but they're not. And if prosperity were easy, everybody around the world would be prosperous, but they're not. And if freedom were easy, everybody around the world would be free, but they're not. But we are. We know what works. And what works is free people standing up and saying the brilliance of this country is individual responsibility. It's hard work. It's faith. It's freedom. It's charity. It's turning towards God, not away from God. It's standing on the principles that made this country great. And that's not letting the government take over everything and run it into the ground. So let's get to work. Let's roll up our sleeves and take this country back. We'll lead that effort. I won't let you down, but I can't do it alone, and I hope you'll help. Thanks for coming out.